can Israel silence the Palestinian press? And why it always tries to silence this voice? Why it doesn't want the world to know the truth of it as an occupying power? The enormity and the triviality of the crimes it commits against the Palestinian people on daily basis push it to target the Palestinian journalists and Palestinian media institutions. Many Palestinian journalists were killed by Israel while covering its attacks on Palestinian children and women. Many Palestinian journalists were injured by Israeli bullets. Many Palestinian journalists were detained because they do their duties as truth-revealing heroes. How difficult it is to pay with your life because you are covering an event, revealing what happens on the ground, revealing the truth, refuting their lies. In 2020, there was an increase in Israel's violations against the Palestinian journalists and media institutions. Reports issued by Palestinian relevant institutions show that at least 476 violations of the right to freedom of the press were committed by Israel. These violations include violation of the right to life and bodily integrity, violence against journalists including physical and verbal assault, and degrading and humiliating treatment, detention and arrest, restrictions on the freedom of movement including banning journalists access to certain areas and from covering events, and banning journalists from traveling outside the occupied Palestinian territory. Media institutions and offices raided, destroyed and shot, bombardment and destruction of media offices, and a print ban on newspapers. Despite all that, the truth that Israel is an occupying power remains without change as long as it occupies a people who believe that their defense of the truth is part of their defense of their basic human rights.